The Honest Garage Podcast, where real shop owners tell real shop stories.
Today on the Honest Garage Podcast, we're talking with a shop owner who went from fixing farm equipment in a two-car ag building to running one of the most respected repair shops on the western slope of Colorado, and he's still pushing to raise the bar for the entire industry. Dennis Goodhue is the owner of Diamond G Repair in Montrose, Colorado, a full-service shop that's been serving the Montrose Valley since 1985. Built on honesty and integrity, Diamond G has become known locally for dealership-level accuracy, with small-town values, taking care of everything from gas and diesel cars and light trucks to trailers, with a reputation for technical precision and genuinely friendly customer care. Dennis started life as a farmer, keeping his own equipment running and fixing his neighbor's gear after hours. In 1985, he turned that skill set into a side business, working out of a two-stall ag building and wrenching late into the night. Over time, he moved buildings, invested heavily in training, and grew Diamond G into a modern multi-bay facility with a full team of techs and staff, serving drivers from Montrose, Delta, Olathe, Ridgeway, Silverton, even Grand Junction. What's really interesting about Dennis is how he thinks about growth and people. With the help of the consulting group Drive, he's taken the business from a small farm side operation to a shop approaching the multi-million-dollar mark in annual sales, all while rewarding his team with things like trips to Hawaii and Mexico when they hit big goals, and stacking real benefits like insurance and retirement so good techs actually want to stay. But if you ask Dennis what he's most passionate about, he won't start with the numbers. He'll start with reputation. He cares deeply about changing how the public sees this industry, highlighting just how skilled modern technicians really are, and educating customers so they understand what today's diagnostics, electronics, and systems actually require. In a world where one bad review can travel faster than the truth, he's laser focused on communication, inspections, and teaching the public what honest professional auto repair really looks like. In this episode, we're going to dig into how Dennis grew Diamond G from farm fields to a high-volume, high-trust operation, what he's learned from decades of change in the business, and why he believes education of both techs and customers is the key to the future of our industry. Dennis, welcome to the Honest Garage Podcast. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
So, for everybody who thought that open might have been a little bit long, tell me how your story got started and give it in your words where you got from the farm all the way to where you're at now, and what were some of the big turning points along the way?
Trying to be a farmer in the 1980s and starting a farm, it was a kind of a bad time in the industry to do that. I had a knack for repairing our own stuff. I started doing that, started doing the neighbor stuff, started taking in more work. Pretty soon I didn't have time to farm. Then I had to learn a whole new skill set. Yeah, I could turn a wrench, I could fix things, but the more I grew, I had to hire help, hire employees. Then I had to train myself, train other people. We had the typical growing pains of everybody, and you have to define your jobs. So at one time in your life, you're doing everything. You have more hats than you can possibly wear. And after a while, you have to get rid of some of those so you can excel at the ones that are needed. You have technicians. They do their jobs. You have service advisors. They do their jobs. You have all kinds of other people in the business that need to do their jobs, and you have to train them and trust them and let them do it so you can do yours.
Yeah, I think that makes absolutely perfect sense. And anybody who started out as a small business knows what that feels like for sure. I know that you've been in the business long enough to see everything from like carbureted farm trucks and into the CAN bus modules, advanced diagnostics. When you look at the last few decades, though, I'm curious, what do you think's changed the most for techs and for shop owners separately? What are the old school habits that don't work anymore in 2025, and what are some of those that need to be put away?
Okay, I'm old school, but I have to grow. If you don't grow, you die. If you try to maintain, you won't, because everything else is going up. So the internet, the advent of computers, networks, cars talking to each other, cars talking to the manufacturers, cars doing all kinds of things. You have to stay abreast of the technology to even work on it. ADAS is the challenge that everybody's looking at now. Some people are doing it, some people aren't. It depends probably on the demand you have. I feel that As a technician or as an employee or as anybody else, there's only two issues. One, you don't know, and two, you don't care. So if you don't know, guess what? That's my problem. I haven't done my job. If you don't care, then that's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, I absolutely. And it's funny how almost all problems in the world break down to those two simple things. So how do you stay up on the technology and solve that problem of we don't know? And then what responsibility do you take as the owner? And what responsibility do you pass on to your technicians?
Technicians are all basically rated. We all understand the standards, A Tech, B Tech, C Tech, beginners, whatever. When you hire an A Tech and they prove themselves, then you have to put trust in them and allow them to do their work. If you have a B Tech, they need to be at least watched. If you have a C Tech, they need helped. That you get into your service advisors, they have to be able to put the correct jobs with the correct talent, those types of things. And getting all the training you can find, whether it's national training, local training. We've brought people in when we started in EVs. We brought in people for a 4-day course and paid the whole thing, invited other shops to come too. It's the opportunity you have to get training is a little difficult out here in the boonies.
Yeah, and growing up on the Western Slope, it's funny how many people on the Front Range don't realize like that there's a whole nother half of the state that's so much more spread out. And a lot of the training and a lot of the focus put here in the state of Colorado is focused around Front Range and Denver metro area, occasionally Colorado Springs. But if you're down in Pueblo or you're out on the Western Slope or you're up in the mountains or all the way out in Durango, Cortez, you got to really normally travel to go and get some of that training. And it sounds like you took a different approach and you said, why am I going to travel with my whole group when I can just bring the specialty training out to us?
That's very true. Also, the training for up front, you have to seek out that type of training. You need to find people that can help you to run a business. So that training is just as important as the technical training in the back.
Yeah, and for any of the listeners out there, what are some of the resources that you found for training for both techs on some of the modern technology and for service writers and maybe for even some of the admin staff or some of the other stuff? I know that you've got a really good tie-in to Drive, and I'm interested to hear where some of that training comes in, especially when you are on the Western Slope of Colorado.
Okay, the tech training, I partner with another shop in Colorado, and we put on a class, they put on a class, we do that kind of stuff. So AVI, ATG, you can come out with all kinds of names, Napa training, O'Reilly training. You go after all the training you can get and you evaluate it. Someone puts on a training. Do we need it or don't we? If we do, great, send people. Maybe not everybody, but whoever needs the training. When you get into clerical stuff and running the business, Drive has been instrumental for me. And I would recommend anybody in the industry, whether they use Drive or another business, you need the consulting. You need the help from people. Because I express to my guys a lot, what do we do here? And they say, we fix cars. I said, yes, that happens. But what we really do is we have to fix people's problems. The car on the lift doesn't care whether it gets fixed or not. The person standing in front of that service advisor really cares. So you need people skills. You have to have the computer skills to stay up on the technology. You have to have financial help where you CPAs, tax law attorneys, that kind of stuff. You need bankers that are cooperative, and you need someone to help teach you how to do these things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I want to dig into that for just a moment. I know a lot of our listeners are probably at that stage in business where you're trying to do everything yourself. You realize you can't, but you don't know exactly why you can't other than time. And I think a lot of us, when we get started in business, feel like it's a time issue. And I'm curious if you can share your perspective at the time when you knew you needed that consulting and you knew you needed that partnership, and where your head was at then and where you have taken that and transitioned that to now and what you've experienced during that time when you first got this set up. Because I know that's a point that a lot of our listeners are going to be really struggling with, and they don't know when it's time to bring in that consultant.
Sure. 2008 is when I started with Drive. That back then they were called Management Success. I received a flyer in the mail from Mike Lee, said, where's the black hole in your industry, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, okay, this is another scam. But my wife decided that I needed to go. And it was probably one of the best choices they ever made. They said, come to this seminar. We'll teach you everything you need to know about running a shop in 2 or 3 days. And they went through an awful lot of material. As usual, I could not absorb it anywhere near that fast. So they signed me up. And it was a lot of money at the time. So in 6 months of training, I paid for the training already in the increased business and everything. So we continued, and I've been with them ever since. We've progressed. I've got into a top 20 group. We've got other shop owners that we all meet with every week and help each other solve their problems. But still, to find out what you know and what you don't know, you have to look at your own business. Excuse me. If you don't know how to do the books, maybe you either learn how or find somebody to do it for you. If you're wearing a lot of hats and you need to get rid of some, you need to train whoever you're going to hand it off to, and then turn it over to them and let them make a mistake if they need to. But you need to oversee them, make sure that you've done your job. Training is something that none of us like to do. It's kind of like promotion. When things get slow, you cut your training, you cut your advertising, and your promotion. Those are both wrong things to do. I go back to my farming days when the example of fertilizer doesn't cost, it pays. So you need to do the training. You need to do the other stuff.
Yep. I think the comparison there of training and marketing that you were using to fertilizer is amusing to me. Growing up in the farming community, I understand that not all fertilizer is shit, and not all training and marketing is either. But if you get the wrong ones, it can actually really hurt. So,
and yes, that's another thing with Drive is you have to find out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true in any business, in any model, but especially here in the automotive industry, where I know there's so many options for training out there nowadays, and there's always a guru somewhere that wants to help you with something. So I think it's great that you found a place that really fits for you. And I know you're really passionate about improving the industry as a whole, the reputation, and shining a light on what good techs really are, what they really know. I'm curious how you talk with your techs and your team and your customers, and what are the ways that you're educating the public about what actually is proper diagnosis and repair on a vehicle in 2025, 2026, instead of maybe what their opinion of it is or what their thoughts of it are from 70s or 80s.
Oh my. Training people, training employees, training anyone, first you got to decide what the need is, because there's so many misconceptions in our industry and in a lot of other industries too. Someone comes in and they say, I need a tune-up. Okay, most modern cars don't need much of a tune-up anymore. There's plenty of maintenance that needs done, but you have to teach each customer. Each brand is different. Each type of vehicle, gas, hybrids, diesels, they're all different. So every customer needs educated on everything they need. And as much as boring as it sounds, read your owner's manual. But it doesn't happen. So most of us have databases that give us the manufacturer's recommended maintenance. You need to take care of that. When you have a breakdown, that's a part failure or a lack of maintenance or something else. So they need educated. All of my customers need told what they need, and very few of them know. All of my customers need to understand the difference between a 1976 Ford pickup and a brand new F-250 Power Stroke. There's so many technical advances, things that need taken care of. We have likened ourselves to, and the whole industry should be too, technicians, mechanics. Still, people look at mechanics as a greasy guy with a grease rag in his back pocket out there monkeying around. Today, we're more like the medical industry. We are technicians, x-ray techs, this tech, that tech, and you've got to increase the level of communication, increase the type of communication, and increase the awareness of the customers of what we really do. We're not witch doctors anymore.
No, and I think it's important to also note that we were never witch doctors. They didn't understand back then. We just didn't do a good job of educating them. Even when it came to carburation and some of the older vehicles that were out there, you still had to know a lot about HVAC and vacuum and a lot about the different types of fuel. And people didn't understand, like when you drove from the Western Slope or in the mountains, for example, in your vehicle, and you drove all the way out to California, that the fuel and air ratio was different in their vehicle, and that's why it ran different. So I think that education piece really always needed to be there. But I think as modern technology has caught up to vehicles, it's become even more important because we live in this instant gratification society. And I don't think people understand that the way that they get that instant gratification is to actually understand the vehicle that's getting them from point A to point B and appreciate the technicians that have the skill to train them on how best to operate that vehicle and maintain that vehicle so it'll continue to take care of them.
True. Another advanced problem is in the 1960s, we had what, 3 or 4 models of every brand. And nowadays we share the same problem with parts stores. We have 30, 40 models, and they're all different brands, different models, different everything. Plus, you still have to know all the old stuff too.
Yeah, because people still want to keep their favorite cars on the road.
Yes.
Nobody wants to budget for a new car if they've got something reliable that they feel like that they love. I think all of that makes sense. And we're talking really about the transition over time that you've seen. And I'm one of those other big transitions for me is like going from like a handshake relationship in business to writing modern repair orders to creating modern DVIs. And now people are Googling you in the parking lot, leaving you a review right after they left or before they even leave the parking lot. They're just sitting there. And I'm curious, how has the technology and online reviews and everything on the customer side impacted the way that you've run the business? What systems have you put in place to protect the customers and your reputation at the shop?
Okay, we start with a digital vehicle inspection, and I've done that for quite a while now. We used to do paper inspections, which was functional, but the DVIs are better. The customer gets to see pictures, videos, movies of everything we find. We find that it is our responsibility to tell our clients what condition their vehicle's in. And we don't want to do it because we're upselling to them. They need to know. We're not going to go through and inspect everything, disassemble everything to inspect it. So you're not going to tell them this is perfectly safe and everything's good, but you can tell them what condition their vehicle is from what it was when it came out. So we communicate by text, we communicate by email. People that don't want to do that, we still do it the old-fashioned way too. The payment has changed. It's digital. The approvals have changed. Most of that is digital now as well. A lot of the scheduling is now digital as well. So it really gets us into the internet and the modern age. You can't do business the old way all the time. You may still have to do it that way at times with certain customers. We have clients that don't even own a computer.
And I know some of my family on the Western Slope doesn't, even some people my age don't out there, which I find absolutely mind-boggling given how my whole life is centered around operating right behind these screens. I think that it's really interesting to have to bridge that gap still, and probably even more so in farming communities and stuff on the Western Slope, where you're dealing with multiple generations of people who all have multiple expectations. And how do you keep up with managing those expectations across all of those generations? And is that you yourself mentioned you're old school, but you need to run a modern business. And I'm curious, like, how you help people change that mindset.
Through Drive, we have minute classes, hour classes, and then big courses you get into. You identify a need and you go. You can find consulting companies that have scripts for everything you need, for how to answer the phone, how to talk to a customer, how to talk to an angry customer. There are scripts and ways to handle all of those issues. So when you have a need, when you have a problem, you address the problem. You don't talk about it, you do something about it. Because talking doesn't produce anything. If you do something about it, even if it's wrong, you learn from it and you move on and do it right the next time. You still have to also try to maintain a personal relationship with your customers too. And that's difficult because that's the old school part. I like that. It's nice going out and talking to your customers, and I think they appreciate that too. And yet there's some customers that don't even they've never seen me. They don't know me. Everything's done online, and it's whatever they need. It's whatever the customer wants. I don't like the adage that the customer is always right, but it's mostly correct.
Yeah. And we both know in this industry, the customer's not always right about their own vehicles, but that doesn't change that they know what they need in that moment, or at least they think they know what they need. And it's our responsibility to go and meet them where they're at and then try to educate them from there. And I think that with education and training, like really being at the core of what you do. I know you take good care of your employees. We had a conversation around that the last time that we talked. And I'm curious for owners out there listening and they're struggling keeping good people or they don't really know what to do. If you can share some of what you've learned about rewarding your team and what you've learned about retaining techs and advisors and everybody else on staff. And I just want to know what it is that you're doing and how you're retaining people and keeping them engaged.
Let's start with how I hire people. I used to hire people by resumes. This is your qualification. Boy, you come in here, you're going to be a great fit. And I still like that, and I still need that. However, when I interview a person, I want to see what kind of person they are. If they are a tiger, I'm not sure I want that because they have to get along with everybody here, and we have to run as a group. The team is the only way to make the dream. So everyone has to get along and have a good culture, enjoy each other's company because we spend a third of our lives with the people we work with. So once you find good people, then if they need training, you train them. Going on to how to keep them, you have to pay them what they're worth, and that varies everywhere you go. And there are different methods, whether it's flat rate or hourly, whatever. You have to develop a way to do it. We also, in what I do, we like bonus systems. So it's all based on production. So they can reward themselves. The harder they work, the better they work, the more money they make. And you also, most of the younger techs especially, but everybody, they want the benefits too. You need insurance, you need retirement, they need a path forward. They don't want to stagnate and stay where they are. You have to show them where they can be, even if it's from a car washer to becoming the owner. Then you also have to give people spiffs. I set targets, and when we make targets, we reward them for that. You mentioned that we've gone to Hawaii. We've gone to Hawaii 3 times. We've been to Mexico, and we've already met our goal for this year too. You have to set new goals every year. And once you reach a goal, set a new one. And if you don't set a goal, how do you know if you ever reached it? So you really need to use the correct planning, and that's something that's foreign to a technician. You don't have a goal. Your goal is to get the car done, get fixed, and get it out of there. Now you have to be setting goals for other people, and you try to hire people that align their goals with yours.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to focus on too, because I've heard that from techs over the years that like we just need to get the car fixed. That's the goal. And it's okay, but what could you do if everybody in the shop could get cars fixed at a faster level? How much more could you get done? How many more people could you help? And it's a really good thing, in my opinion, to pull the tech out of the tree that's right in front of them and let them see the forest a little bit and see where you're charting your path through. So I think that's great. One of the things we ask everybody that comes on the show, obviously with the name Honest Garage Podcast, and we run Honest Mechanic Marketing, honest is a really big thing for us. And I'm curious what that phrase, honest mechanic or honest shop owner, honest garage, what does that mean to you personally? And how does that show up in the way that you're doing your business every day?
Honesty is honesty. It is self-explanatory. You can look it up in the dictionary. Whether it is in the way you deal with your customers, whether it's the way you deal with your employees, whether it's how you deal with the government. Honesty is honesty. Does that mean we're perfect? Oh, no. Do we make mistakes? Yes, we do. But the honesty part plays in what you do to remedy that. You at least need the opportunity to remedy a mistake. And that's why we always talk about if you have a disgruntled customer, they're actually doing you a favor. They're standing in front of you. They might be spouting off and be angry, but what they're really telling you is, I have a problem. Can you help me? And you need to help those people. You need to take care of it. And if it's your fault, you admit it and say, yes, it's our fault. We'll take care of it. Honesty is what you have to do. It's the same thing in the estimating process. Yes, we're going to tell you what an estimate is, but that's an estimate. Until you tear into the car, you don't know what it's going to take. You need to tell the people with your inspections as well. These are the things that are wrong with your vehicle. Do you need to do them all right now? No, but this is the priority list and where you should go. So it's a mindset of being honest, being straightforward, being good to your customers and to your employees.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's different levels from what you were saying. If you make a mistake on a vehicle or something, that's normal. We're all human. If you make a mistake and you choose not to be honest in that moment, that's a different level. That's a different level of mistake and a different concern. And I think the way that we address these in business is really important. Like, you're allowed to be human, you're allowed to make mistakes. I think in all the training and everything that we do to try to be as good as we can be for our customers, things happen. Vehicles are complex. One system feeds another, and you may have solved a very real problem, but not solved their problem that they came in for. And it's the communication that really builds that honesty piece up, in my opinion, I suppose. So,
No, you're very right. Communication is paramount. Is it important? It's like leadership. I'm in the middle of a book right now that's got it in my head. Leadership is something that everybody thinks comes from the top. Everyone in the shop needs to be a leader. Everyone. Even if all they do is lead themselves, everyone needs to be a leader. And all problems come back to a leadership problem. And down from there, good leadership, bad communication doesn't work either.
no, it does not. I think we have to try to assume that most people have good intentions, but they have poor execution, or they don't know how to communicate that message across effectively. But if we can hopefully still assume that most of the people that we're dealing with have good intentions and they're coming to us in good faith, it's almost all problems boil back to communication and expectation setting on the front end and asking clarifying questions. I think in our business and in your business, I think that's something that's really important, to pay attention to what people are actually saying. I love that you like the confrontational customer every now and then, because they're telling you they have a problem instead of telling everybody else they had a problem with you. So
that's right. They're giving you the opportunity to take care of it before they take care of it.
I just want to say thank you again for taking the time, and huge thanks from our listeners to Dennis. Before we go, what's the best way for people to learn more about Diamond G or get connected with you, if you're willing to share some of your information and have people ask questions, or if they want to take this conversation further than we have time for today? What's the best way they can do that?
All of our contact information is on diamondgrepair.com. We have a website for that. And yes, if you call in and want to talk about these kinds of things, you may get someone up front, a service advisor, and you need to explain to them what you want. If you want to talk to Dennis because of this podcast or anything else, I'm almost always available. I'm not going to give out my cell phone number, no. But
in a very digital world, that's understandable.
Correct. But no, I'm very willing to help people, to talk to them. That's something, as I approach retirement, I'm looking for a new game, and education may be part of that game.
That's fantastic. So for anybody out there listening at all, Dennis has tons of value to share, tons of willingness to share it. Take the time, reach out to Diamond G. We've talked to the service advisors there, and they're great. They helped us get connected with Dennis in the first place. Really good team out there. And if you've got value from the conversation as a listener, I just want to encourage you, please share this with another shop owner, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and really help us help more shops grow so that we can help shape this industry that we all love as listeners and as guests on the show. And if you have any questions about marketing, obviously reach out to Honest Mechanic Marketing, and we'll be happy to help you there. And I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Thanks for listening. As always, keep it honest in the garage.
Where we were, I knew we were going to run out of space and obviously advertising, signage, and everything else. So I think the second biggest decision I made, which was a huge leap of faith, was where we are now, getting in more of a retail establishment and that, the street footage than where we were. So, the technician needs to align with that. And then our advisement team does the same thing. It's our job to educate the customer. I mean, if we have an oil leak, what is it going to do? What's the cause and effect? How much is it going to cost? If I don't do anything, what do I need to look for? These are questions that the customer may not even know what to ask, but is, again, our job to inform them about those.